Advantage 1 is the war in Yemen. U.S. weapons allegedly make the war safer. However, the Imperial record shows our unwavering support. Greenlight's atrocity. By the time your RFP is over, 12 Yemeni children will have died. Foreign policy 10-9 children. Soldiers saying our no rights to make most of Yemen's protection from civilian population was estimated with 22 million. Needed humanitarian 10 million facing famine. It was called the world's worst humanitarian crisis. More than half the population does not have access to drinking water. Child dies every 10 minutes. Illness is sick of the threat. Yemen live through the worst drinking water history. Radical military such as Al-Qaeda and IS have been around that gas. But the U.S. involvement aims to reduce influence. Iran is becoming more influential. The U.S. stands make a difference because actions like the U.S. for restraints. U.S. support will moderate or end the war. Neg arguments crumble under the weight of crushing imperials. But Bando JD 519, despite the administration claims of moderating coalition conducting an energy war games and protection has been recognized by air tax aliens, government forces back by Washington, and Libya, mentioned by his coalition capabilities not used by coalition to apply to inclination to moderate suppression of the Saudis are not Russian aggressors were in coalition. Houthis will take camps for United Yemen. The coalition of 80-day cap. Houthis, the coalition committed a majority of atrocities responsible for 3/4 of casualties, giving himself self-defense the attempt to turn its aggression into a Bucha parliament. Houthis only risk being launching missiles after use of coalition bombing and actions that produce preventable harm must be prima facie rejected. Felique, PhD 90. Because the average U.S. citizens and non-massacres occur with citizens, that's nothing else. Saudis must under prima facie obligation to keep informed, prevent or especially major political suffering whenever helping their crowds tribute sacrifices when people involved countries suffer prima facie obligation to make serious attempts to become informed about current atrocities. The app solves the Yemen conflict in 1 minute. Jones, PhD, at all 19. This diplomatic leadership would like possible world conflict between Saudi Arabia and Yemen because Saudis can act about American effort to get out. It's the only way to start a war. We're not willing to do anything but supply weaponry. We call the Saudis and say ceasefire tomorrow at 6 or no, they'll be starting at 6 or 1. They'll say, yeah, we got it. We have no choice. That would have a huge impact, huge human benefit in Yemen. Ending arms sales has a powerful symbolic effect. U.S. action is crucial since it can leverage its influence. Spindle, PhD 514. U.S. arms embargo against Saudi Arabia clear signal disapproval to allies, which continue to provide weapons. Trump had endorsed society policies, arms sales, cut food noise, international system, reducing assault arms as a major political act, reflective credit, wording this so that will be recipient of the signal would override other statements. Embargoes require cooperation, embargoes from participation in their embargo to domestic constituencies. More expansive embargo could affect Saudi behavior. Saudi Arabia would have to work harder to access more materially. Chelsea transition, this would represent a brief break in hostilities of facility delivery of aid in Yemen, not acting with endorse Saudi behavior. The plan sends a signal to allies that U.S. support must be earned, encouraging moderation. This stabilizes the region, all prices, reduces terrorism and proliferation. Walt, PhD 18, state in the Middle East is in a position to control the U.S. and not have to do much to maintain regional alliance of power. Market approach with facilitative cooperation issues for the U.S. and Iran interest alliance prospects by relations with the U.S. would give direct incentives to moderate behavior past U.S. efforts. I say encourage it to play less role. This would discourage America's president allies from taking a support program, encourage them to do more to retain its favorite allies. Understood that Washington was talking to everyone. They listened to America's advice, less cartel support. Advantage 2 is Middle East war. Yemeni instability causes arms racing and miscalculation in the region, causes cascading conflicts. Young, PhD 17. There's a neighbor cycle compensate for the weak middle institutions, high risk of further civil war in Yemen. The violence shop is not contained. The spending effect is contagious. Other neighboring states, even if they are peace, armed forces, dedicated expenses, the other risk of public health infrastructure or education, cascade spending lead to militarized region, private conflict, hypersensitive to threat. Yemen conflict is more likely to escalate than their disad. Core PhD 18 conflict is international actors. 15 years of lasting international players to do in Iranian Saudi Arabia engage in a Cold War committing for regional supremacy. So Yemen's victims of a hot war neighbors, all the conflagration are real. The arms sales embolden Saudi Arabia and send a double message, destroying credibility with Iran. Polar 18 Kirk series of risk of giving Greenhill to the Saudi regime to destabilize, including sparking U.S. around military confrontation. The U.S. is sending a helpful message. Others supplying double standards are giving higher priority arms sales and HR. The U.S. sales to the KSA signal hardline Iran policy and increase the risk of war. Arms sales are the vital internal link. They're a crucial symbol of U.S. intentions. The Petrus 528, the developments of the protocol heat up after religious resistance from refining enemies between immigrant and Iranian officials who got a possibility about misconduct even more the shelter communication. Yet the administration expects sale of arms to Saudi Arabia and fabricated bold into Pompeo was when Trump used as sending more weapons to radical deliver a message of result. Trump is deepening America's air walls, combating Saudi Arabia and Iraq that is from the Middle East. Apart, we need to fight this latest arms field criticism today's events. American relations are in the pits. More communication is correct. More weapons in the hands of Saudi since the opposite measure. The administration can combat the pressure will bring Iran to the table. More likely Iran will sit in the war with Iran escalates to global conflict. Goldenberg MA6 war tensions between Saudi Arabia. The between Iran and the U.S. are the highest point in U.S. The nuclear administrator and sanctions will 10 years. The war could happen. This got determined major fire clash and reconflagration. It is missiles that can target U.S. bases, recapping the state of Muslim and Jabal war. There's a distinct potential for misunderstanding with both actors. make decisions on pressure and on information and climate distrust remain. This they go on check the U.S. mandatory defensive measures as preparation for dramatic escalation and conversion on by carrying out the pre-infrastructure and software war depending on what's going big Trump agrees the military soon one but not performing at all. Not powerful all counterattack Iran might originally might get drawn in the topic might push Iran to the predictive program further if the U.S. goes into topic company with Iran military who face calls on home to go throw with the Islamic Republic and will head on the U.S. for years. The war would cost billions, probably future presidents, and sometimes even worse, nobody wants to happen. The only way to end the arms race is to end sales to Saudi Arabia. Iran's build up is responsive times of Israel 717 or 735. Instead of the U.S. wants to talk about Iran's special they need to stop selling weapons to suggest the halt of Iran sales to Saudi Arabia tension sword with the U.S. calling for airstrikes against Iran after Trump are down in American doing Washington with the Islamic Republic for attacks on tankers. So Iran's dumping Iran's of uranium coming to ability to buy advanced weaponry. This sanctions extended downfall Iran invested in its ballistic missile program. The plain text: the United States federal government should substantially reduce foreign military sales and direct commercial sales licenses to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for operations in Yemen. Framing: aircraft, given the scope of capture, it's more likely than not that the neg authors on the payroll. Hampton 18, the nation's also objection to research the other besieged people who believe near Saudi's money implicits which issues research centers what begins to be a headache to deal with funders on other centers that give Saudi money when they centers were more Catholic than the Pope and adhering to the Saudi alliance view. Source indices 100% defense. Saudis intentionally target civilians, create no jobs, isn't a proxy for Iran, and no other countries can fill in a hard time 515 with your supply system without those economic sustained intervention. More civilians would die as promised on the idea Saudi make very civil civilians issue one construction infrastructure was a lot of this argument. Saudi militaries could not turn down or take a decade or more of field deals with Moscow. Overreaching would have a limited impact if Russian China or even global supply with the international program. Nobody companies such any decision to jobs will be created in Saudi Arabia. Who the opposition is by no means approaching with Iran. They have grievances that have nothing to do with Iran's military to eliminate militaries when we'll be fighting no matter what. The intervention is driving the coalition closer to Iran. The best way to undercut Iranian influence is to end the war. Critics of wrong suspension of arms sales wonder the defense industrial base across villain and empirically is effective in changing behavior. Miller and Binder, MAs 510, there is no evidence that they continue to country the U.S. use suspension of weapons to persuade social cancel civil general government China tells us security members from Egypt result criminal case for releasing military hold on our appeal to Saudi Arabia pressure coalition to re-engage negotiations suspension the Egypt secretary of corrections to work due to accept military assessing continue the whole polls will produce some good fire suspensions you'll detain wing should remain part of U.S. foreign policy suspension do not automatically compromise access to Egypt never be eligible to use the Suez Canal until we have other ways we should not likely access with influence access reduced like countries in Yemen study found that they do not provide economic benefits, nor jobs, nor sales necessary to maintain the military industrial base, powered by billions of dollars from domestic purchases. Countries alongside the diverse will become unrealistic to be this whole exclusive supply of any country reluctance to use leverage symptomatic of product authorities in U.S. foreign policy fixation on maintaining relations without regard to value. They provide no offense. U.S. sales are redeployed fueling terrorism and undermining our military effectiveness. Adversaries like Iran acquire them and reverse engineer and probe them for weaknesses. Banned out JD 318. The Saudis destabilizing the Persian Gulf. Houthis hate ACAP. The Saudi also did effort Houthis attention from dealing with America's enemies. KSR terrorist friends. The Saudis arm ACAP coalition. Cut secret deals with. Discovered U.S. sanction and expanded allegations transfers by Saudi Arabia to ACAP. Saudis have used U.S. weapons as currency to buy loyalties and malicious arms transfers for war crimes, compromises, allowed al-Qaeda to survive, strengthening the most dangerous range weapons and weapons. Through the hands arms sold to Iran where U.S. weapons were studying copy the rare entry to advanced weaponry loaded by Muslim supply and demand arms sales flourish. Do you have one more card?
Are you good?
Yeah.
Yeah, here's the plan.
The United States federal government.
For defense.
We won't specify beyond the plain text because we don't want to give you competition for process counterclaims.
Well, obviously I said for dissents, now for counterclaims. Will you defend anything for dissents, for normal means, or whatever?
For dissent. Well, are you going to read it across as counterclaim?
We're not reading process counterclaims, right?
Okay. We will. I don't want to specify. I feel like we'll give you links to dissents as long as you don't read a counterclaim. We'll give you links to Congress dissents.
Cool. Okay. On the Goldenberg evidence, I think, the one that says that war with Iran would escalate to the hot conflict, it's talking about Trump and Bolton's posture of being extremely aggressive, but Trump just fired Bolton over being too hawkish in a bunch of fights. Why would he still decide to do a first strike on Iran?
Right, so we think Trump's personal actions, like his tweets, the way he's personally made statements approaching Iran, show that he would still carry out aggressive actions if the conflict escalated, which we think is happening right now as a result of
okay, so what do you mean by the conflict escalating? Because right now it's just a proxy conflict between Yemen, or the Saudis and the Houthis in Yemen, but Iran is just backing them militarily but not actually involved. How would it escalate to an actual conflict?
So our argument is that the selling arms to Saudi Arabia, who is Iran's regional rival, sends a signal to Iran that we're taking a hardline stance and trying to contain them. This provokes Iranian aggression that is likely to escalate into a conflict between the U.S. and Iran. We think the plan is able to solve by sending a clear signal through everything else.
Okay, but we do so many other things. We have so much presence in the Middle East. We have sanctions, like
right. So the Spindle evidence specifically says that arms sales are a very important signal of how the U.S. is approaching different countries. It talked about Saudi Arabia specifically, and we read a piece of evidence that's like ending sales would specifically send a signal to Iran that we want to open communication with them, which would mean that they wouldn't perceive other things like sanctions as like the core of U.S. foreign policy. It would be able to send a message that we want to communicate and resolve tensions.
Okay, what evidence do you think says that Iran would be willing to respond to that?
I'll just find it. The Petrus evidence in the Advantage 2 says that.
Okay, cool. Do you have any internal links to solvency other than this signal?
Yes.
What is it?
Like ending a conflict.
Okay, cool. Ending the conflict. Can you explain how the Yemen conflict would escalate?
The Yemen conflict would escalate because Saudi Arabia is being aggressive right now and antagonizing the Houthis. We read evidence that right now the Houthis aren't a proxy of Iran, but the Bando evidence says that continued pressure will make them a proxy of Iran and get Iran more involved in the conflict, which would make that conflict escalate. We think that the plan solves by causing exhaustion before that's able to happen.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's talk about your framing argument that actions that produce preventable harm must be rejected. Why isn't the dissent an example of that?
This is more in the context of ongoing suffering. We think that there are people dying in Yemen as a result of U.S. weapons being delivered literally.
Well, obviously, death is bad, but I'm just sort of curious about what the implication of this argument is.
It's an implication that we should prioritize ongoing suffering that's resulting from our actions over like a small risk of it, like dissent.
Well, it's a question of currently suffering. And we also think that we have to prioritize impacts that are going on in other nations.
Okay. It's already been said. It's going to be 7. Then Iran and Yemen. And like all the framing and author index stuff will be on the Yemen page.
I have 5 more sheets of paper.
Yeah. Sorry. You good?
Thought it was going to be 2 off.
If we were gonna make it be one off. Just saying.
Whitney X history is not reflected everyone.
We didn't read the cyber index then.
Is that enough paper? I think so.
Wait, sorry, 7, and then is it Iran, Yemen? Okay. Let me just download it.
Sure. Good.
No, sorry, it's like opening. Okay. Give me a second.
They'll have matching shoes.
You do?
It's like a
Excuse
full
me.
twin thing.
That's because his are like super dirty. Mine are actually meant to be like gray. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, Ben, you good? Okay.
First off, the act is a process of resilience that internalizes catastrophe, engendering endless war and limitless nihilism. Evans are read 14, subject democracy, self-understanding, participation in political self-annihilation, liberalism, become more like coaching, intervened by a frame of particular, pulling subjects distance better than any political rationality, subject to the world, living world is radically engineering as everything becomes social agenda revere, into life to summon and proliferate impotence, real life simply representing a polling state of any emergency. The alternative is a shift from security rhetoric that rejects security rhetoric that causes a shift towards more broader cooperation. Vertical 14, the rethinking how we understand security practices, naming security designating critical priority, constructing external threats for institutions self-capable of providing security does. With power can exclude political alternatives, but needs to approach to the future of basing security while facing above on a cosmopolitan conception towards an integrated global society and the needs of least powerful acceptance, practice of privilege, security of the few, and damage global cooperation. Next off, reduce indicates permanency, it's distinct from suspend, runs 59, reduce, it does not say to resistance, it's infinite permanency, voting issue. There are nearly infinite conditions that don't guarantee their ground sense that arms sales might not be reduced. Next off, reduce refers to sweeping measures that establish qualitative or quantitative limits on weapons as first, that's distinct from restrictions on specific types or states of weapons. Piercing idea restrictions entails disapproval of specific tastes, classes of states, or specific types of weapon production into its home or sweeping measures such as qualitative or quantitative limits on ceilings. Voting issue, a loss explosion of infinite tiny subsets that are case specific restriction and length uniqueness, not specifying your agent in the plan text as the voter decks, access to aging current plans and mechanism dissets that are crucial to education. Next off, substantials 25% DFARS. 19. Substantial reduction means a reduction of 25% or more in the total dollar value. Voting issue. They allow proliferation of tiny apps that target the country or weapon of the day. The app doesn't meet through any official metrics. Sam. 19. Here's a chart. Zip your arms straight through database. 19. Here's another chart. Next off, the United States federal government should maintain arms to Saudi Arabia, covertly prohibit nuclear strikes on Iran, exert diplomatic pressure on the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the various factions that claim to represent the government of Yemen, negotiating a settlement that secures some Houthi role in the central government while preserving a unified Yemeni state led by Hadi. The counterplan solves Saudi momentum providing the war is waning, but keeping arms sales is crucial to weaken the anti-Houthi coalition and maximize the chance for long-term stability. Robinson, age 27, the U.S. should diffuse tensions between Hadi and the SEC by supporting negotiations over anticipated civil war that ending the war fighting in Yemen could have helped reduce such by the Houthis and Yemenis. Washington could support negotiations settlement to minimize Iranian influence. Terrorists and thus the Houthis decide on restrictions for interested in clear guarantees that will permanently end these threats. Congress should return cutting ourselves to Saudi Arabia, which would weaken the anti-Houthi coalition and reduce the chance of reaching an acceptable peace agreement, facilitates inclusive talks about the address historical agreements to promote decentralization. Next off, USMCA passes now self-security across the law. 821 negotiation and importance of coalition for both parties. Just agreements led to time to withdraw the USMCA over $2.2 billion in active versa. Integrating global for promoted investment, looking at certainty bipartisan between the White House and Dems will be crucial to them. They support the passage. Supply inside of rankers, inter-branch dispute, derails the agenda, posting for meal. 8 if both the JA agency and University of Stanza should end occurs, should end in terms of governance, such a decrease transactional costs to debates are fruitless. The only way to act is to renew constant negotiation energy of officials liberty. This should end up one issue to say that state that each side refused to cooperate under the dimensions and legislation. Great power war castle 17 threats include war sites for running Iran, Russia, and China could food security is imperative to reduction in multiple threats that reduce more stable countries and sustain security, Canadian stability, and there's some violent massive population movement period projected to occur in the next projected to occur in the most food and secure regions. Next off, the arms sales are key to the defense sector, stopping sales crushes readiness and causes global instability. England and Sayers 9 military strength and fed on preserving the international interests that sustaining stability, technology, and military superiority platforms. U.S. develops to provide America's defense industrial base less. The United States builds a weapon system feasible production of potential missions carrying military elements to acquire an industrial base robust defense strategic defense strategies and technological mirrors superiority to deter Western governments deter potential enemies engaging in conflict, reduce risk and loss of life, defense situation, potent chamber. Congress should promote additional foreign military systems and American defense industrial base also is important while helping build capacity for American allies, enhancing interoperability to efforts to attack fairs, including the advantage of reducing war. Congress should evaluate foreign military sales and create economies of scale, bring further stability to the industrial workspace, also along with the obvious benefits of industrial trade, but offers sound geostrategic benefits. Case Iran. Iran inevitably develops nukes, but a preemptive strike stops on first success for prolific Miscock and terror, creating 12 military strike intended to destroy Iran's nuclear program could spare the recent years of international pressure that failed Iran's regional robbers would have acquired their nuclear arsenal, sparking arms race Iran, could transfer nuclear technology to its terrorist groups, having the bomb Iran can cover for conventional aggression and courage for diplomacy develops between Israel and could escalate the bombs but easily spiral out of control. Independently, war with Iran kills Trump re-election campaign promises and oil Miller and Spolsky. 19 wars have not been cut to American presidents, Spain, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan, turning to legacies that Ronald America's lasting Trump needs his 2020 election proposals. Trump is getting out of one win war is one of the hallmarks of his presidency. Trump re-election causes irreversible damage to global warming, the biggest arms race since the Cold War started. 19, the biggest difference between Trump 2016 and Trump 2020 will be irreversibility. Climate policy is an obvious example of the quality of climate agreement change that is delayed because of economically and politically difficult. The 2020 election is also determined step up from trace and the risk of nuclear accidents and nuclear war. Several countries may have to pursue nuclear weapons, especially those in the region that have relied on security guarantees such as the Middle East and Northeast Asia. The stakes global non-proliferation. James Trump dismantled the remaining arms control treaty that Trump's American first policy approach causes countries to question their ability to security guarantees. No scenario for drawing glacier. 17 external power bargaining to stranglehold the plausible separation from economic problems that hinders potential in the Middle East. China last while no state possesses the capabilities necessary to conquer neighboring territories or gain controlling influence plus or break down any internal problems, taking the cost of offensive action prohibitively high. The military clash are seemingly unlikely even in the absence of U.S. military presence, and Russia won't get involved. Fisher 15 theoretically only impede Turkey and Russia could drag nuclear president war, but this is not World War III. The stakes are too low. Russia doesn't care enough about either. Do needed it. Both will de-escalate. The Russia cannot fight diplomatic wars. Too many fronts are already from Russia and Moscow want to be part of the solution to Syria. This year, Turkey's borders too far from Russia. There's zero risk. Either side could misperceive the Russia. Syria is reason to believe Turkey is about to invade. The side was for reason to do this. Anything would escalate, even if Moscow didn't want to de-escalate either. Capability Russian forces in Syria way too small to prevent major conflict. U.S. forces are modest. Neither has the enough to stake. Neither has physical capability in this region. There's little risk of an intended escalation. Yemen.
Jeremy, I need way more friends.
I got you.
Competing rights games collapse. Only ethical options to minimize unnecessary death. Screen 10 times telling some moral judgments sound irrational and price citizen like that they're an incoherent moral faith that can accommodate moral institutions to find the intelligent terms that are not deontological. The consequentialists are against treating people as subjects by any every person's well-being. If you ask a deontological person why to push why it's hard to push someone to pay five other states, will be teleological, they're flipping sophisticated, but they don't explain anything. There seems to be something deeper right, give the voice of powerful emotions, but they don't explain the philosophy of questions. Saudi influence evaporated post Khashoggi. No author index Politico. 18 Saudi Arabia typically formidable lobbying operations gunfight aside of the influence in Washington lobbies have largely disengaged in Khashoggi was killed. field centers, so they hidden from any lobbies for the Saudis, five of the smaller means lobbies for Squid, they'll circumvent through BPC, it's distinct from FMS, Gilman 14, in contrast to FMS programs building product capacity, they're not true FMS cases, BBC programs, and normal defense articles for the purpose of building product capacity, security nation forces. The app doesn't solve humanity deaths, Houthis or wars, Mubarak, 2-6 political solutions, that then we choose to slowly moving towards negotiating term moves forward will not help peace, instead, deliver massive victory to Iran and win the extremist Houthi militias, support of the coalition who directly contribute to security and stability of Yemen, Houthis have executed vertical world war using illegal tactics, including Charles extreme chiefs, landmines, plus the Houthis are met with political and military pushes, so we will wage war indefinitely for our allies, which all we feel the crisis will only intensify, leading to more destruction and loss of innocent lives.
Give me a sec. Back in Iran.
Back in Iran. Russia lets Iran release public statements support to increase economic and geopolitical incentives. Because map 19, the couple demonstrate willing to meet serious to good bullshit to US business suggests that we should not rely on Russia for the competition with US. Russia is not fair. Gave Russia to provide Iran for 400 business to make sense. The Russians will try carefully, especially if it's a chance to follow relations in the EU with the US. Hamas can see benefits from increased pressure in Europe and Iran's oil giving Russia its on increasing Moscow can move to curb Iranian influence. No China support sanctions, fears in US co-op instead of Jung Ho. 19, China slowed down its work on Iranian nuclear project and made high stakes negotiations with the US. China fears sanctions and close for relationship negatively fluctuate war negotiations. This is not in the case of China Iran co-op. In fact, it's the opposite. And Iranian oil is irrelevant to China. Other countries overwhelmed on Newenstein. 18. Iran's coming takes place in China's list of top suppliers for oil by Saudi Arabia, Angola, Iraq, and Oman. The Chinese crude oil imports were double those from Iran. If a conventional war started with Iran, we'd crush them and we'd strike their nuclear facilities with the B-2 and GBU F-57A. CAC 17. In the armed conflict, Iran have little to search against the F-22. The U.S. came out on top of these exchanges. B-2 self-armored, B-2 self-armored figure predominantly. This would make the B-2 the decayed American attack in the nuclear program penetrate heavily defense areas and eluded sophisticated defense systems to spin. Decided to attack Iranian nuclear program would use almost would use the MOP and Marines to rely on the current A-87. The lasers is bad news for Iranian TG2. Lasers will American destroy speed based is currently testing U.S. sponsor. Iran's day of reckoning may be near.
Awesome.
Thank you. Can I wait until?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, Sam.
I haven't got it yet.
Okay, you good? I'm good.
Status of the off.
Conditional status code is natural.
Okay, is the auto putting pick?
No, can't resolve yet.
Okay, what's the resilient subject?
It's the way Nietzsche describes it, it's just someone who's under the control of someone else, and they internalize all the problems that they don't have control over.
So what does this mean in the context of like debate?
In the context of this securitization that the 1AC forwarded, it creates internalized self-hatred because we know we can't control the world, so we try to create a like world of mastery type thing that causes internalized.
Yeah, why do we think we can control the world?
I mean, you fiat implementation of.
So we like read a plan text in a debate room, so we think we're like the masters of the world.
Yeah, we think that. I mean, it's not like the masters of the world like you actually think you are, but it's an attempt to try to map out the world and try to project like some amount of agency over a world that's too unpredictable to be able to control.
Okay, the Dibdisad, any evidence about Saudi Arabia?
No, they're our largest importer, and the app is a substantial reduction. So
No, the app is not a substantial reduction. It is a big reduction.
Okay, fine.
Very important.
It's not 25%, so it's not that big, but it's still a large amount of the defense industrial base, revenue.
Okay.
And we'll obviously read evidence about Saudi Arabia. It's huge.
Okay, what
But not
evidence
big
do you have
enough.
that says it like international sales? What's the one point international sales are more important than like the massive amounts of domestic procurement that we have
It
right now?
talks about a bunch of things. Like, first of all, we import a lot more than we actually use.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
What's the net benefit to the counterclaim?
The politics dissad, defense industrial base dissad, and
Just the 3 dissents.
Okay.
But not the case 2.
Got it. Thanks.
wait, 3 dissad.
Good.
Did you not?
It's just you smack it and then did.
Yeah.
Oh shit, one of them must have not saved in the doc. Oh well.
Okay.
Whatever.
Thanks.
Okay. The counterplan, actually, yeah, the first strike, what evidence do you have that says it would be able to successfully like locate their nuclear facilities?
We have one of the most advanced technological forces in the world. The CAC card that was read at the bottom of the 1NC talks about specific lasers that we can use to be able to locate their nuclear facilities and bomb.
Okay, how does that work? How do you like use lasers?
I'm not exactly sure how like
I can
super
describe it
advanced.
if you want.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
Jeremy's a computer computer science guy, you should go ahead.
Well, I mean, this is hardly computer science, but anyway,
Maybe I'm just
the U.S. has a series of technological advancements, including stuff like space-based radar that allows them to locate them. For the vast majority of Iran's, specifically nuclear facilities, they're buried under a lot of rock. Our intelligence moves for all the Mars, and we can use B-2s, which are bunker busters, in order to destroy those and take them out.
Okay, what does the first strike look like? How many nukes do you launch? Like,
I don't know if we would ever need to launch nukes. Their facilities, don't have the capabilities to produce nuclear material yet, so we'd probably just launch a conventional strike.
Yeah.
However,
if the conventional strike didn't succeed, it would escalate to nukes, and then that would definitely destroy them. It likely wouldn't be enough nukes in order to trigger any broad geopolitical attack or any nuclear war impact, especially given the fact that we've used small amounts of nukes before, both
So
in
is this
testing and in Hiroshima, which, I mean, it's not going to be a large enough nukes.
Okay.
Nuclear winter, definitely.
10. Do you have? Okay, 8:20.
sure.
7. Oh, there we go. Okay. That's also going to sound at a dock.
Yep, sure.
820, you said?
Yeah. Is that what y'all got?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. Is everyone ready for an order? Okay. It's gonna go war in Yemen, Iran war, the T reduced subsets, or sorry, T subsets. Yeah, we get confused. Okay, T subsets, T substantial, T suspend, security, condo, or the counterplan, counterplan, USMACA. Yeah.
Yeah, hold on. Let me down the two docs real quick.
Okay.
Oh, it's already signed.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay, I have it open. Thanks, Em.
Is everything in the addendum just on the Iran page?
Yeah. Okay. Is anyone not ready? Extortion and support Yemen's Saudi Arabia physically continue without the U.S. support. Violence will Yemen war awaits one time for parasites script as they wish survivors to the background for critical threats won't come vote after the peace of that country. Violence in Yemen is more important. 2. In jurisdiction, you can't vote next until the developed nation. You have a psychological predisposition to maintain the status quo. Vote after to flip that card and buy. That's police. The line mail and the green evidence we say cause forces was good, but say parasites, sexual violence over extinction. The Saudi influence influence doesn't apply. First, it takes it through a run impact turn because people don't care about a run anymore, is what this card says. But second, it takes out you smack him because it proves that nobody in Congress is influenced by Saudi Arabia anymore. Third, is that we still get access to absolutely because it's a question of continuing arms sales versus not continuing arms sales, which arguments indicates that Trump is the one who's going to continue arms sales. BBC, FMS infrastructure used for BBC tier, Fars Latina, FMS infrastructure with such a build partner capacity. And skip the next card, the Houthis were starting, Houthis are fighting for their lives right now, and they would end all their aggression post plans that Saudi Arabia pulled out of the war, which means that we were able to solve. But in the status quo, they're also going to continue doing these things, which is a new advantage for us. Run! Iran war awaits. One is break now. All Trump almost started war. Try to access all solutions inevitable right now, which means this also takes out uniqueness for all their arguments because it's not a question of first strike being limited, but it's a question of how is Trump going to react psychologically. Also proves that the alpha always on time frame. Two, if this happens highly likely, fast arms race building causes states to be more honest than usual, which means that they haven't answered our Saudi Arabia escalation scenario and conceded the fact that Saudi Arabia and Iran can end up miscalculating, which definitely means that we outweigh their impact because at least if we win versus defense, they've conceded this in one seat. Third is escalate, draws down the powers like the US, Israel, and Russia, which causes the war to go nuclear. The Iran strikes. The ground wars are both beyond first strike, but for evidence because it's more recent than their statements. Since 6-11 when Australian against Iran uses stronger Iran is longer, better prepared for the West Iraqi. War with Iran would be harder and redness, hostile on a footing of cotton, but if the US government was to strike out, all consensus told me that the top would be around 4 times that 8 million people who are going to be in hospital would be a vigorous long-term care campaign number 15 years ago, low impact and 21 million, cost $1 trillion in lives, half a million users, new capabilities, Gaza 14, a special government is circulating information about the Iranian communication, they say, first we show them the government's own credit, but the documents were taken. First strike would be disaster, when you see evidence, all is devastating counterattack, hundreds of thousands of deaths, Iran won't use no destabilization. We don't have nearly the anti-nuclear capability. Lieber and Press think we do. Cartoon. Lieber and Press arguments on how to use these meeting on the asylum with the only use of our taking nuclear weapons. But the summary found larger bombs. Many retaliatory capability. About technological capabilities. All use of the Chinese technology. They have just all follow. New Arizona road using natural carbon to weapons. And U.S. breaks a use brace taboo station. Anderson Sixer. Understood lines between the hurting facilities and a station with the UCC. U.S. new civil hiding probably else. Well, within nations no longer taboo. Regional folks and people were destroyed civilization. Use actually the destruction of life on the planet. All of their evidence is much older than what you. It means that they should have already escalated the only impact, the Trump impact arguments. It should have already happened now because there were oil tax on tankers inside of the region, which has already killed Trump's which should have already killed Trump's election. The yes draw in Russia, China, and Israel. They don't assume presence in areas where Russia's gotten involved in things like the Middle East much more, especially with Syria. Their argument about also most of their evidence with pre-2019 means that it doesn't assume things like Trump's sending drones over there or Iran's secrecy and attacks occurring, or doesn't assume escalation inside of the war in Yemen, which is another internal link to our scenario. The critique. Reduce. Just kidding. We may plant access to reduce or do the right thing, we do the qualitative theory, counter to reduce means to emissions, that's can't humanity reduce, means to emissions, that's one of the evidence is unpredictable. One, precision, it's not authority in order to figure out control depending how it uses it in paper. Two, government comments indicate reducing for either more working measure or government policy security laws federal and to rehighlighting to evidence. F grounds or interest whole res, destroys after innovation, creates stale and make by self through no resistance for either side. Picks, lose everyone in making filtration to cut better individual cuts through weapons. Other limits check, circumventional and policy self-threatening counterlands, prefer reasonability, afternoon's defense, other to win, other words, innate level inside of secret T, which kills top execution clash, which seems to spread chaos, instead of trying to defend the topic T substantial. Resolution just requires USFG specification. Any other interpretation is ability aggressively to aging counterpoints would be a 2C strategy and tracking topic education, cost of reasonability check assessed by Congress. But the state just has interpretation substantial at least 10%. Michael's right that Monica's been at least 10% of the state of the substantial. Prefer evidence that clearly delays between substantial and substantial using legal precedent. Only RF is our topical country path. Over limits Saudi Arabia is a large person for arms sales, but huge market to be topical on its own to allow for in-depth debate. No difference in health explained with allowing one single country path is different than their attempts to allow limited combinations of countries and still limits based on weapons. Functional limits, solvency advocates, entering Congress, conditions to fill in answers, cost libraries, ability to suspend. Counter-interpretation immediate expense if there's a possibility of a return is reduction. The Supreme Court upheld a meaningful difference to work. Does human interest support, but human interest in benefit, no human interest in benefit, but apply or protective designation. Reduction, suspension, busing, anyone. Alternative use after practice. Suspending for the term 12 then that increase when we result in actual use and over the reduction in increase amounts. Unpredictable definition that way. If you have a possible consider no solving advocate, the limits often suspend or consider inevitable to matter giving it to affirmate. The suspend counterclaim meets every reduction system. So I'll under urgency. Still gets access to all these and immediate reduction. Unofficial counterclaim which creates meaningful vision of ground security. Waiting implementation of advocacy, ultimating the process of advocacy is for due to possibility advocacy fields outside of debate, the ultimate proposals for solvency in English country, due to value of advocacy always in the scope of solvency. If the ultimate rules will approximate the impacts of the advocacy in case system exists, this can't be a floating pig, cross-sex check. There are also loud new responses, they make new arguments. They're evidence about liberals in the act is realist, we endorse restraint, and interventions with solves or impact. And it's a question of defensive realism. Third, it's linked to reduce security as Iran and understood them as reactive to US provocation, permutation to do both. That's not mutually exclusive. Threats are fabricated, the frame is reductive, copying micros, and the make for also making impossible, and all their spells are for real change. Happening to and there's trouble with mental health, even sharing with them, expectationally. Radical and from American teachers, recently, national identity groups as well as the alternatives, I want to show it. Not because it's a responsibility, they do not see, I cover the knowledge that there was survival more and structural requirement, the physical scientific approach, the social realities, the normal construction, the African purposes, the massive view, the times of work, the future means and data, and also in case of the university staff, substitution, development, isolation, the setup of stress, and the education stress level, whether cognitive damage, mental health, objective reasons of consequences and causing data, more than necessity that her curriculum will be the politics and cut the card as politics also links to older dissents. There's no way they can get out as a representation of the dissent. Permutation, do the affirmative through the mindset of the securitization if they get to separate out of it. And Saudi payrolls are also paid by method degree. Give the evidence significantly less weight to the state of monetary interest, which also take out the security, which proves that authors are also on the criminal counterpoint. Conditionality is a voting issue. A reciprocity, multiple on the balance, screws the time goes 20 yard, making cost 1 using 2 narcs and master time mechanics. Narcs not in there to made. Key fairness and limited active position. B strap, either go for straight out of cover, and it's only my best offense. Fundamentally, excuse what you have the position. C, drop the weight because the drop the arguments account functionally conditional because the KK and its key to deterrence. Permitted after place 2 and 3, not enforceable. Explain how they prohibit nuclear strikes on a run. Links to DIB that ends the war in Yemen. They don't make money. Links to use SMACA. They'll make us look like we're soft on a run, which links even harder. Also doesn't solve the act, doesn't solve the war in Yemen because it's a question of being able to stop arms sales, otherwise Saudi Arabia will continue. Exerting diplomatic pressure is insufficient because we've done that in the past and they just continued. When threats aren't sufficient. Also, if they try and get rid of any type of military aid, that's the reason why it's a voting issue because any type of arms sales, that's the reason why it's a voting issue because it's a form of conditions counterplan, so don't let them add a plan to that counterplan that allows it to become conditions. That's the only way they would be able to solve the war in Yemen. That's what's also causing aggression inside Iran, which means they don't solve the Iran advantage insofar as they don't solve the war in Yemen because that's what's causing arms buildup. Now, use SMACA. There's no reason to interrupt for use. Congress has authority, won't pass penalties against committed roads because they're too many. Second point, fair that. There was a little bit of expect that. That's all the countries probably goes around after removing the environment the way they release it. Drug prices living on again, given the timing. Reducing arms sales society Arabia's by all by partisan means the plan gets seen as a huge win for Dems. And Mr. 19, that Senator Black Steel against society Arabian right. Partisan will review the Trump administration, Republicans Georgia Dems, other policy to the larger Trump Congress there. It's bipartisan coalition that supports reducing arms sales society Arabia, diluting winter of 19. Trump is bipartisan pushback arms sales society Arabia. There's government taking national political track and legislative action is necessary. There's no internal link to the impact. How does use MAC solve? There's no even uniqueness claim about why the fruit order is currently collapsing, or if it's enough to be able to resolve the fact that there's an unsteady food order in the status quo, forcing them to read that and making it to review it just inside of the wanting our readiness. Domestic versus sell-side arms sales play on comparison to what our military buys at the same economy is on its mill and binder. Offsets take out the links out of your required to produce weapons over there, so there's no job loss, that's harder. The links how you can follow arms sales stop. We only defend underground though. No macro effect goes over to 19. That Saudi Arabia impact of sales to small business sales. Reduce first objective the new harm that actually currently activity 1 year. No jobs impact is exaggerated. Current party self-readiness. Party 624. That Saudi Arabia is under 10% of some price. No jobs are going to pass 20,000. That insurance that we need to find budget from the high stock price. It will fund for the region already that. Management space earns from the self-defense and neighborhood. National funds. Also, no readiness impact after Dagger Miller 16. The use sensitivity for the next regard budget for basic common for and cheaper orders for sound no longer cost for be only cost of the Chinese leaders about the realize it's failed to requirements that has to make it to battle worlds all right. The experience is in countries that you say weapons only use in destructor you're going to sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Cool. The Davidson 621 card says Iran snowballs beyond first strike because they have a larger conventional capability than Iraq. What evidence do you have that it would be a conventional ground war and not a first strike?
Well, so the argument here is that Iran is currently more prepared and enjoys regional support. So our argument
that's conventional, not nuclear.
Well, so the whole
airstrikes.
Well, it's not about that. It's also about the question of whether or not, if we do strike Iran, how would they be able to reply? It also makes the draw-in claim, which is like, yes, they'd be able to reply. Your evidence is like from 2017. It's embarrassingly old for you to be able to read it.
Which evidence do you think substantiates the draw-in argument?
It enjoys wider support, regional support.
The Davidson card?
Yeah, that makes one claim, but I can also, I mean, if you're asking the Davidson card was a warrant, but there's also warrants in other cards.
Support from who?
So, for example, Iran currently gets support from places like Russia. It also has regional support from other actors inside of the region because they have alliances with people. Like, I don't know.
Okay, the Hassan card says that Tom Cotton predicted that a first strike would solve, and this guy Larry Wilkerson was like, yeah, if we went to conventional war with Iran, it would be terrible. Again, where does this card draw the distinction between if it would be a conventional war or a conventional strike?
Yeah, the argument here is simply, like, we're just making a claim that, like, any strike on Iran, your cards are like, it doesn't escalate, it's sufficient, because Iran doesn't have capabilities, because they're all from 2017.
Capabilities to stop an airstrike.
And Iran hadn't already enriched uranium. But
if you want to talk about old evidence, your card says that Iran's super hard to invade because it almost stopped Alexander the Great. If we're talking about
it's making distinctions about how the terrain is. So I don't even know much about what Iran is like. But our argument is simply that a war would end up having to get drawn out.
It says they have a ton of troops. It doesn't say that they don't have.
What, do you nuke all of Iran, Henry? Like, do you kill 80 million people?
Of course not.
Okay, then
it doesn't
our
matter
argument
with the
is that
strikes.
a first strike using a nuclear weapon would result in a broader war.
What evidence do you even have that we'd use a nuke?
Our evidence is taking into account the idea of a strike. It says, for example, the Car 18 evidence is talking about how a new era is dawning.
Car 18 is an indent of Lieber and Press, which is an article we didn't read that says that we could nuke Russia and China's capabilities.
Yeah, it's making a claim, though, however, that it's
That
a
has
question.
nothing to do with Iran.
It's making a claim about nuclear weapons and where they are kept.
What's that? Yeah,
From
the
Russia,
US they can't
it says
talk about
US and
the
Russia have significant weapons in silos. It doesn't say anything about Iran.
Yeah, it
Iran
doesn't
doesn't even
get
have
drawn
nukes.
into the war.
Why would Russia get drawn into a war? You haven't.
Russia's allied with Iran.
They're allied with Syria as well. Why didn't they retaliate when we bombed Syria?
Because we didn't drop a nuke.
We wouldn't. Okay, that's fine. Reasons to reject the team, just conditionality.
Yeah.
What was the voter about adding a conditions plank to the counterplank?
Then it would make it impossible for
So,
the app.
so only if we amend
Yeah.
the plank? Okay, so that's fine. Great, so you're going to defend Congress for the entirety of the debate?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
But only in the context of
That's cool, that's
if
fine.
you read a process counter plan.
Okay,
That was
I'm
my
sure
answer.
there'll be no 2 NCD process.
But I also answered A specs, so
We're good.
okay.
10.
Yeah.
Make it longer. I have blocks.
But I like the spillover.
Wait, what do you want?
He'll likely be able to spill over from the.
Oh, sure. You can just hand it over. Hey, Jeremy.
Yeah, what's up?
The salary. It's the same
Yeah.
work base, right? Okay. Just making sure. You want me to say it?
Just,
You sure?
yeah, I'm sure.
If you can see it, what?
That's fine.
Yeah, I will.
Um, there's something.
You're at 6:58.
Yeah, and prep. I think it's good. Just hang out. What's that? We're just going to be yelling around. Anyone not good? Right, everyone good? Yemen pays the Afghans all day only solved the war between Saudi Iran and the Houthis, but our evidence speaks to the war between the Houthis and the internal struggles with the Yemen government, which says that they're causing a bunch of violence against the citizens and the government, which they have no evidence to substantiate that something like a political settlement would be able to resolve, which means that the vast majority of the impacts occurring in Yemen right now would continue, which means that they can't solve this. Framing arguments versus these magnitude balances theirs with ours. Think of each framing the aggregate. If you accept a 1% risk of extinction 100 times, that's definitely way worse than saving a few people 100 times. Scoop, neglect, substantiate, or risk arguments are terrible in comparing large risks because we view death of Jim as a tragedy, but the death of 100 as a statistic, which flips their cognitive bias argument. Extinction also outweighs qualitatively because it's the only irreversible impact, and extinction is a prerequisite to any ethical theory of util is good. Any alternative requires saying that some lives are more valuable than others, which is caused by their impacts and unethical. Their arguments are tautological because their justification for why suffering in the status quo is bad is the consequences it has, but just because that's bad doesn't mean that extinction is the jurisdictional argument is ridiculous. Just because there might be a minor psychological bias towards the status quo doesn't mean that you can't engage in any analysis there. The implication of this would be terrible because we can never solve any future impacts, which would mean that we'd reproduce all their impacts and cause serial policy failure. The Saudi payoff warrants doesn't apply to Iran strikes. Our evidence cites a bunch of political professors who predate the Yemen war and have more recent evidence as well, which proves that they aren't, but also they conceded our argument that post-Khashoggi most of the lobbying firms quit, which means they're no longer under their influence. They can't just say everyone's paid off, they have to apply it to specific others, which they didn't do, and ad hocs don't disprove arguments because we've tied it to the specific military capabilities, which is their burden to defeat. To me, Iran war. Limited war with Iran would be good. It would like joint U.S. allied strikes on the Iran nuclear facilities that totally knock them out of the nuclear game. There also solves the other advantage because it means that the war would de-escalate and it would end the Iran backing the Houthis, which means it solves their structural alliance just a little bit later, which means that they can't extrapolate any real differential. Their first argument is that Trump would overreact. That's our link argument. The war would miscalculate through Saudi and Iran and get Saudi and Iran into conflict, which would cause the U.S. to get involved. The next miscalculus likely though is entered above framing issue. All of their evidence doesn't assume the new bunker busting weaponry, which will destroy their bunkers, and it assumes single strikes, not a long strategic bombing campaign that would end their nuclear program. Those Kronik and CAC and joint U.S.-Israel strikes destroy their program. Best houses and U.S. military tech upgrades. As Wilson said, 12 U.S. military action damage around nuclear facilities. We can afford to rebuild facilities, damage around military capabilities, repeated sorties and results. It can be damage to facilities around 5,000 military and already stored that we can build destroy nuclear facilities, damage to military capabilities, use to destroy around air defense, airport, military communication, network, command and control centers, retaliatory capacity to destroy into nuclear weapons, proliferation, geopolitical benefits, reduce Israeli restrictions, tensile strike against centrifuge reduction, contribute to post-money grants, ability to build nuclear weapons, Iran's overall military capabilities would be damaged. We're factually capable of it. That's Kronik 14 little that Washington could be capable of falling to it. That's imposed unacceptable costs around fundamental deterrence is maintaining force of launching devastating trade, capable of connecting counter force on nuclear arms, nuclear force of Washington, good plug around nuclear devastating the United States and nuclear capacity. We're committed to de-emphasizing nuclear weapons. Our foreign policy that will have even a hard time with dealing nuclear one. Sheer military dominance proves that threatening 18 U.S. military superior to Iran's every way nuclear arsenal alone enough to line most of Iran's U.S. 31.3 $20 million. Active military personnel does just have 550,000 American troops. Are better trained, better equipped, largest military budget in the world. You feel some of those. There's weapons, military is outdated. The American naval is unrivaled. Our evidence of 50 battle weapons on remains until the nuclear bomb. Their arguments about how their evidence post-states look, they have no evidence that post-states that's actually relevant to the debate or evidence. It's soon enough and assumes military capabilities. They haven't been able to explain what new capabilities Iran has or how they've changed in a fundamental way for post-stating matter. But plus, we read new evidence. The next argument is drawn. No, that's false. First is empirical. The U.S. literally attacked a sovereign ally of Russia twice with cruise missiles, and Russia did nothing, which shows that structural contains deter drawn from great powers. Evidence is unwarranted fear-mongering. Two is economic losses. Going to war with good cause. China and Russia are the big bucks for development of military capabilities. They don't have any ready to auto-deploy now, and the creation of them would create massive deficits, which leaders want to avoid in conflict. We read evidence specific to Russia that they just didn't answer. They don't have any evidence to substantiate either Russian or Chinese drawn. They publicly stated that they wouldn't get involved. They literally stopped selling Iran arms, which means that there's no way they'd get involved in a nuclear conflict. They have both economic and geopolitical incentive because Russia likes instability in the Middle East because that increases oil, and they have economic incentives to stay in the U.S. is good gracious and give them an olive branch. China will say out they also didn't respond to this evidence. They're an oil importer that has massive incentives to avoid a continued war. They want to go for it as fast as possible. They're scared of sanctions from the U.S. and have massive incentives to maintain cooperation. Their no strikes argument has no warrant. They've read an impact, so they don't get to get out of it. We respond with a decapitating strike that's chronic. Their only evidence that substantiated the escalation was Goldenberg, which says that Trump has his hands on the trigger fingers and would respond with a massive military attack there. I'm going to skip that card. I don't need to read it because they read the evidence for us. They haven't had any substantiated claim for why we wouldn't respond with a massive conventional war there. The next argument. Their next argument is that a war would be horrible. This is an analytic that doesn't assume surgical strikes, which is what our evidence says what we would do. But even if that's the case, the impacts of nuclear war would outweigh. The next argument is that Lieber and Press is wrong. This evidence is about the ability for us to take out Russia and China. Obviously, counterforcing Russia and China is significantly harder than Iran, but we know where all their nukes are. There's currently 14 strike would destroy Iran, 14 nuclear facilities. No rise column and any cover additional facilities. That's what expanded this include flashcard parts and Iran now to Iran is any operational nuclear facilities still unknown to Western intelligence agency. Accuracy, see improvements of the objection. Let's leave impressive either accuracy improvements of past 2 decades. Substantial least account for scheme build accuracy, revolution offer, a solution of French problem opening the door to multiple, a nuclear war hunting into civil military, thus paving the way for disarm counter force. The key cause of French time for these words in the B 611 can destroy the bunkers. Hamlin and Shekin, 6 around Barry nuclear lab deep, bunkers under 7. Stories beneath the surface would be unreachable to America's conventional bomb use. Military also possesses penetrating nuclear weapons such as the B6, 11 which could destroy Iran's underground lab nuclear bunker busters. They go only 3 meters less enough to send the bomb shock rates and creating low guzzlers. The next argument is that it breaks the nuclear taboo. That's empirically disproven. The U.S. has nuked people before, and it's still there, which obviously proves its resilience. It also explains nothing about any of its outcomes. That Cheryl 17, the idea of taboo support about diversity, depending on their interests at the time to be engaged in public diplomacy, demonizing nuclear usage, destroying impurity service, obtaining greater nuclear parity, such rhetoric, image Russia abandoned NFU, the U.S. rhetoric, but more favorable tends towards the taboo power plant building, the dollars wanted unusable control agreement, if nuclear artillery, 70 taboo, these behaviors will represent an undoubtable puzzle, and political technological barriers to nuclear use or reduce strategic opportunities to multiply conditional nature of nuclear use is foundational. The pro-live net benefit of non-prolific nuclear first regional arm bases causes fissile materials to get transferred to terrorists and gives cover for conventional weapons and coercive diplomacy that escalates with Israel. That the crony commitments which goes conceded no new 1AR enters. Iran prolif is also inevitable. In years of international pressure failed to accomplish any meaningful reduction. That's Kronig, and they've factually broken the uranium limits. They didn't make a case solve the Iran prolif in the 2AC, but if they try to spin the 1AR, you should both strike it off your flow and they don't solve there. We explicitly conceded their link about miscalculation from conventional. We didn't concede their internal link about the sort of signal to Iran, which is obviously ridiculous given the broader containment posture of the U.S. stuff like sanctions, which is the explicit reason that Iran is proliferating, and there's no reason that diplomacy would be able to solve, which was the conceded warrant in our Kronig evidence. Yes, the nuclear first strike would solve proliferation, would destroy all their facilities. They wouldn't have the economic capacity in order to rebuild any of it. It would reduce the program to rubble, would reduce their will to continue. That's Kronig 14 critical strike argument tech would be counterproductive, grand follow upload, under close construction, Iran supremely automated, but Iran would not be asked to build nuclear weapons after strike. It would be not be in a position to destroy Iran. Strike that would take the 100-meter dash and transform into American nuclear, which would not be reduced probable leaders, which meant nuclear capacity simply wouldn't be possible if Iran did immediately pull it NPT wouldn't matter. Those who argue Iran would simply rebuild, but this time I'd like to say I'd like to see them try columns, build a mountain. Doesn't get much harsher deep in the land. Avoid American military power hard as Iran could move the program immediately. Absolutely no doubt. Striking Iran nuclear facility would get a step back into nuclear progress. The 2020 impact Paris failure outweighs creates solutions that make decarbonization possible, will irrevocably destroy the environment. That's how they conceded that Trump will pull out of it, and they only made a uniqueness argument, which is that extinction is inevitable, and there's only a risk that war would be able to solve. War with Iran kills Trump 2020 election process. He's built his America First platform on getting us out of wars and oil price spike, which harms his business appeals. That's Miller and supposed to, which means it's only a question of uniqueness. The recent surge was super short term. That's WSG, then 14 drone tricks and study forth the continuous shutdown production. Official said they hope to restore production 9.8 million barrels a day by Monday. Look, extinction is inevitable. There's only a chance that a war with Iran could solve. They have no unique offense. Easy net. You're gonna have to read the uniqueness at the bottom of 2 and C. And you wanna.
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Where do we strike in Iran?
They're nuclear facilities.
Okay, so the nuclear facilities. Are we just talking about the nuclear reactor plants?
Yeah.
Okay.
It would likely be a long bombing campaign on those other military targets.
How long would it last for?
Well, we think it would be incredibly quick.
Okay, what if we don't strike all their nuclear weapons?
Then they don't have any nuclear weapons yet, and we know where all their facilities are.
Okay, so if they don't have nuclear weapons, how close is Iran to being able to develop a nuclear
I
weapon?
think they're around 6 months away. But
Okay.
you haven't contested them the 3Cs or arguments on that would be new.
Well, I mean, the block did read a good amount of cards, so I don't
Answering
think
the
a lot
new
of
arguments that you made in the 2AC, you don't
Yeah,
you
I just think you're
randomly
wrong.
start-
But regardless, we can get into that debate. I guess the Trump re-election scenario, or like the 2020 scenario, in the context of Trump winning, what does war with Iran do uniquely that causes Trump to like lose?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it does two things. Like, he campaigned on two things, which is the economy and getting us out of foreign wars. It gets him entangled in a massive foreign conflict with Iran. And the second thing it does is it causes oil price spikes, which you conceded, and they would be far larger than the sort of ones in the status quo that would hurt the economy, make it look like he's sort of no longer doing his base.
Okay. If Iran developed nuclear weapons, or I guess so, all of your evidence seems to indicate that we would be able to strike Iran using some type of new technology. When has this new technology ever been demonstrated?
I mean, demonstrated, we haven't used it yet.
Okay. Well, I mean, but the new technology, what guarantees are there of destroying all of Iran's nuclear program? I guess is my question.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that the U.S. has tested them domestically, but we cite incredibly qualified evidence that says that analyzes the sort of destructive power of them, and then also analyzes the facilities holding Iran's ones, and says it would be far more than sufficient to be able to do it.
Okay. The nuclear facilities inside of them, what's the brink by which you have to like enrich uranium to be able to get to nuclear weapons?
The brink for enriched uranium?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know like the exact number.
Okay. I guess in war with Iran, what would happen after the first military strike? Like, what is the 1 and 2 envision?
That they would be completely destroyed. They would have no nuclear facilities left. That they would be forced to surrender because the U.S. has just overwhelming military dominance.
Okay, sounds good.
They would stop rebuilding them, which we read evidence on.
Okay. What indications has Israel made that it will strike in the status quo?
Like Israel is literally.
I guess why does the U.S. strike nuclear facilities in the status quo?
Why does U.S. strike nuclear facilities in the status quo? Because, well, first of all, you don't get to know like out of this because you read evidence on the 1AC, and you didn't answer that.
Why does the U.S. strike nuclear facilities?
But because that's what our counterforce posture. Our evidence says that were we to strike Iran, their biggest threat to be able to get back at the U.S. would be the nuclear facilities. So being able to damage those would be the best way to force them to surrender.
Okay. We're good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sense.
With all the Iran war stuff.
So the order is going to be the defense industrial base to set.
No, just do the Iran war stuff on top.
Okay, we'll take like 2 seconds to correct that little word.
Sure.
Okay, don't worry.
The Iran war thing. Okay, then the defense industrial base to set. Keep your timer. The USMCA to set. The security K. The advantage counter plan. And then T not suspend. It was the third one in the 2AC. Just put that up.
T suspend.
Yeah, not T Pearson, not T substantial. Yeah. We good?
Hold on. Yes.
Uniqueness for 2020, air negative authors are checking the Obama air analysis 2018 NPR are radically more effective than
That's like yes strikes.
Yes, strikes. Lonsdale 19.
Someone else was something to do with 2018 NPR trip administration, feeling competitive competition of nuclear onset, talking more realistic percent of the 2018 NPR just for nuclear abolition. Trump wins 2020 view. 625 Trump is in the early favorites to win 2020. Trump is doing well enough to become a nuclear first low quickly go win. It's close and economic factors matter most. 19 Trump landed earning second term the incumbent president sort of built an advantage in a strong economy spending essential and predicted the close call never looked than the president's favorite Trump's approaching is hovering over 40%. Number isn't that low. Number 77 on the market is serious. Trump to win 2020. Democratic failures ensure Trump victory. Now Jones 629. The Democratic convention also candidates percent of change base. So sports for you to declare the Trump of the big winner. Method of amateur election. I was giving you the best time to see the census and election in 2016. Yep, is that good? Defense Industrial Business will concede domestic purchases solve, offset solve, and the link is too small to trigger an impact. USMC will concede Congress has the authority to show no link and no impact means they don't get a straight train. The security cable will concede purview both just to test the competition. They didn't have offense on the flow and no theory. The advantage counterplay will concede permutation to the aft and the second and third plane. There was just a testing competition, but we gain conditionality. Logic, you shouldn't arbitrarily suit your main opportunity cost or vote aft and the status quo is better. Neg flex. We need some space to make up for aft side bias. First must be expertise bias. Vague plans to AC reframing a new apps. Fairness outweighs debate as a game and other venues. Solve education research without a fall by teams will never break new arguments. Ideological flex. The only way to read a counterplan indicate is the alt communities is alternative community schisms shifts. Dispo encourages process starts in framework case because they're hard to turn. Turns in-depth research. People will intentionally read bad arguments. It's not strategic and the incentive to read offenses to be the counterplan skews. Inevitable speed T and framework case. They need to win. We does make clash beyond a reasonable doubt. There are infinite things that we can do to make debate marginally better, which carves out substance over theory and turns our offense. But they didn't really counterinterpret, so you can assume that we only alternative is infinite conduct. Over T. Topical glass must permanently reduce the scale of arms to a government, which means they sales says that it can never resume. That's Reynolds. They don't meet. They didn't even have what we needed to 2AC, so it's only a matter of interpretations. The counter-interpret, it explodes the limits to a topic and endless proliferation of tiny ass on the waist with a new condition to force from arms sales. Any number of weapons times any number of countries times any number of conditions makes the topic enormous. Ask that condition HR to change about domestic policy, change foreign posture, etc. Frame or offense through moral hazard. There might be germane conditions, but those won't be ones right at my top teams near the end of the year. Germane conditions are alone huge. These are important objectives for each country. Now consider the apps that have conditions are incredibly easy to fulfill. Reduce arm condition on less than 10 people. Give us $10 troop location, etc. Let's take it even further. Completely unrelated conditions. We haven't raised banking regulations, fishing regulations, types of food to produce, transferring one type of technology. Even if the war in Yemen is a condition of relevant to the app, they justify a bunch of other things. Limits outweigh bigger topics give the negative massive disadvantage, which undermines the incentive for case-specific research, which is the largest internal link to clash, and their interrupt destroys neg ground. The core topic data sets like Phil and DIB, etc. all rely on arms sales being sold, which doesn't occur if the target country complies. Neg ground outweighs so they get first and last speech case selection and infinite prep. New and universal counterpoint means we're dead to it. The Souder card references a core case about pensions. Fixed pension plan isn't analogous to arms sales. They don't occur to a fixed plan, so the losses will be recouped. Williams, due to suspension of repayment, permanently reduces benefits. Revenue never recovers the payment loss during the period. The amendment eliminates monthly benefits payment that reduces the total benefits. That's a crucial distinction. Could high to the suspension of payments is not reducing income because it's temporarily lost income to display. Suspension creates loss, but it's not a reduction because that's the same card. The blessing card, temporary stoppages aren't topical. The term suspend has a lot of terminology and consistency, but it can refer to four distinct scenarios. Temporary stoppages, withholding new commitments or reduction and or delayed blessings. 81 problems encountered with lack of terminological consistency and sources rate due to regarding the issue of the term suspension and termination occurs where it is permanently stopped. The suspension refers to the temporary stoppage debate in regard to the suspension with terminological inconsistency. Four distinct questions have been referred to by the suspension. One, temporary stoppage to withhold. Three, reduction. Four, a burst of delay. Predictability debate. Debate outweighs precision. One, the depth of clash matters far more than the content of clash. Two, evidence quality alone doesn't determine predictability. Community norms can step in when it's ambiguous. Our evidence is predictable. One, Reynolds is an official court decision that applies to a holistic definition of substantial. Two, legislative drafting goes neg. Two, suspended period side by side by if reducing after noted includes suspension in contrast to reduction. The limit, yes, we have the yes limits. Conditions are better on the neg end than the app. We have to be prepared to answer literally any condition for the country, but the app has app specific solvency deficits and say no and offense. Not offense. It's if condition counterpoints are so bad they should lose on theory, but we don't get ground offsets by future increase, and the only ground we get is politics, but it's concessionary. The only things that I think they can cross apply from other T's are app ground and functional limits. I'll answer them here. Our interpretation allows for sufficient app ground and flexibility. They can read any country, type of weapon or group of either. This topic alone is already one with the biggest high school topics in the year. Advantage innovation solves over limiting just forces creativity. All there are warrants for why app ground and other T's doesn't apply to this one. The functional limits argument, it fails for the same reason they empirically have on every topic. They once they're defined to will cut shifty apps to avoid them. No functional limits. Technical articles exist for everything. This topic has no good universal counterpoints in the generic data sets. Link back to tiny apps at best. Reliance on functional limits versus hypergenerics, but still kills clash. Reasonability defaults to competing interpretations. One, reasonability forces the neck to prepare for every app. That means some reasonable permutation of the topic which is unreasonable. Two, we can't shift goalposts because we lose on predictability. Three, they're unreasonable. A or neg without a clear threshold to the core of the topic means nothing, so you should default to the resolution. Interact.
We had
820.
yeah. 8:20.
Alright, it's gonna be, alright, listen. It's gonna be Yemen, then Iran, and then the counterplan, and then,
What's up? We're gonna do the same time.
yeah, sure, teething counterplan.
Okay. Those, what am I doing?
How much prep are you got?
One more.
Alright,
So
And then I'm sitting up first.
more cards.
can we give those first? Then
Yeah, I'll say them. Is it okay to just do it in the bottom of the dock?
Yeah, so fine.
Okay.
Just give us a second copy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Done.
Okay. Is everybody good?
Not quite. Yeah.
Okay. Everybody has the order, so,
Yeah.
okay. The Yemen advantage, yes, we solved the Houthis argument because we caused this little from Iran, which was the one I see bad. I want to continue the straight train, not only continuing the war makes a bid with Iran, which causes one coalition and causes aggression. We solved that argument. The future for structural impact, 1% risk collapses, policy making makes accurate predictions impossible. The Iran advantage, the Iran advantage, we get new enters and coherent one and two with decides to block low cards and new arguments like the 2020 card. Prove the war was Iran is back. Goldberg and one he specifically says that an attempt to first strike would cause an all-out counterattack against the militias across the Middle East, Iran, Israel, which goes to nuclear, kills hundreds of thousands, reject their argument on face value, goes to regional allies, they have them, that's the Davidson evidence, which means it's not comparable to Iraq's, it's long campaign, go get bogged down, even if it's not intended to be pressure for regime change domestically, which means that the U.S. would get involved in the region, even if it was just attempted to be the first strike, which is extended from the Goldberg evidence, and the Hassan evidence, they also did this in direct response to their evidence. Ward 7 for the U.S. trying to involve using the overwhelming naval army burden submission on a view of Belmer and nuclear facilities. So it'll come by nowhere close to winning the war. So likely Iranians would eventually also impossible to imagine a major massive European will produce desired result. It is only going to raise escalation, mass murder, system version, very structural, likely lead to hundreds of Iranians that would get Iranian society against the U.S. but from behind the regime. They weren't good to because they could American ship because U.S. sailors, even though the U.S. Navy is far more powerful arrangement. They've also the first argument I'm going for on the line is that they messed up. They were explaining the external impact, which makes this impact for the best. Hold up to the twins' explanation. They just said Perloff goes nuclear. That's not a war and choose that. The plane's all saturated with the room, which means that Perloff doesn't cause regional war. Even without the proliferation, we did make this like around the Iran page. It's a crucial signal. 3 is no Iran Perloff. They continue the Gauge evidence. They have no plans, documents, or fake rejector securitization. No Perloff and Winter 625. Iran will prove number 2 nuclear weapons. Ideological opposed Iran to reach the uranium risk limits, but that does not apply the countries on the path of building nuclear weapons. Nuke war cause extinction. Star 14. Even a small nuclear would have catastrophic disruption global climate and massive reduction of Earth. Suddenly, global climate would result in period studies were analyzed by the best scientists in the world with air acids, weather conditions, intense cold would eliminate growing seasons, electromagnetic pulse for the nations would destroy the circuits and all modern electron devices, including nuclear power plants, every nuclear graduate and instantly melt down. The 2020 stuff, Trump will win. It's the economy, CNBC 913, more than 2/3 of officers surveyed by Trump will say Trump will win. 2020 stuff, the largest public and private companies. Iran can't close the Strait of Hormuz, no capabilities in 10, Gillies, Shalon 17, although Iran certainly lacks multi capabilities, so we're sending so damage on all the revenues and generate fierce opposition. No oil impact lasers, Shalonic PhD 17. The actual cost of the would be possible in pushing figure John the strategic petroleum reserve. The internal agency and he released the oil close with the Twitter from which China could happen. The strategic petroleum reserve. The impact would be fairly question justified by the new evidence in the 1NR and proves that there's no impact, which means that they don't get any link to the 2020 stuff. The topicality.
Just read this one.
Okay. Cross of all the argument from key substance, we define reduce it as a plain text in a vacuum market, counter-interpretation, immediate suspension with the possibility of return from her, stood to Supreme Court ruling that determines insofar as we suspend weapons after they've already been purchased, as the suspension reduces the form of the suspension, with widen or one, the suspend means to cease for a time with an expectation for resumption, reduce means the diminishing number reduces, less radical form of suspension is true, suspension is reduction, treasury 15 suspension, may apply for temporary permanent reduction, the no limits offensive, suspend is inevitable, they should be ready to debate, suspend counterplans are worse, they with the entirety of the 1AC, could have a benefit about something 100 years down the line, which we could be prepared to debate, counter-interpretation solves all their offense, we do and all non-sales that are currently going through, but we leave open the possibility of opening new contracts with Saudi Arabia in the future, reasonability good is good enough, otherwise teams will rush to the margins of the topic to read chaos and win. The conditionality. Conditionality is a bloody issue. It's not reciprocal since the negative is the only one that gets a kick out of the positions. It allows them to go for whatever we undercover the most. The logic argument, one is more logical to advance several contradicting arguments at the same time. 2, logic is arbitrary and doesn't instantly constrain on debate. Extension scenarios and root cause explanations are illogical, but people go for them every round. 3 is alternative form solves logic. You can learn about it in classes of puzzles. Logic is not uniquely the focal point of debate. They say neg flex. 1 is this was also multiple position. Multiple often have flexibility to choose between them. You get to get if we make a perm with the argument. If we don't read those arguments, it still becomes like a disset. 2, you still get dissets, NCTs, theory keys, and the ability to choose which of those arguments to go for. There's no reason condo is key. 3, some degrees of flexibility is good, but what they did in this round is uniquely bad and reasonable. You're reading about BS advantage channel with 50 different planks in a critique. So they say research innovation. 1 is incentive to do research is never after be multiple rounds against multiple different options. Regardless, no reason condo is uniquely key to research. 2 is argumentation of such low quality they want to read it. Unless it's condo arguments, we should deter from around the quality of substantive argumentation. They say ideological flex. You can switch between counterplans and case in different rounds. The breadth argument. 1 dismisses the but not question breadth versus depth. The question of engagement versus not engagement. All condo promotes a shallow view where after always is incentivized to make concession responses. 2 is no breadth at all for debating whether we 4 8 is the possibility of straight factors into our decision calculus, but the same doesn't apply with conditional obviously. So there's no incentive to good strategies, just infinite bad ones. They excuse and advocacy aren't inevitable, and we shouldn't try to rectify this. You need this for us being able to proliferate a ton of parts of the block with a negative structural disadvantage and possible they get cheating kind of just solves all their offense. The Iran stuff. I already read that part. Go back to Iran anyway. No prolif, Amberster 19, road change, white rich left hand, with red button, Trump trying to carry regime, currents, a lot of person move, they calculated to get European leaders to reinforce the nuclear deal, price, they have to not put the vote versions of evidence, ran instruction to build a nuclear weapon and hold a nuclear weapons program, marked it program.
Okay, there's one card that I don't think is in the doc. It was the first card you read on the Iran page.
Was that the word one that was just said?
Oh, yeah, that was in.
Yep,
okay.
I just said it out.
So that was
Okay.
one. Okay. That makes sense.
So it's fine.
553.
Starting now.
What?
Or just any other.
New cards.
Oh. Here's that.
Good.
Yeah.
Stand it in front of the desk. In front of that desk.
There it is.
And that's on camera.
It was hard to find. Perfectly reasonable mistake. That was the one. Alright. Everyone get the cards I got?
Yeah, just those two.
Oh.
Can we give an order?
Yeah, it's going to be Iran, Yemen, counterpart. It is try or die for the negative. None of their arguments apply. I'm going for the Paris argument. They have conceded that if Trump wins the election, he'll dismantle Paris, which causes extinction from environmental destruction, which there was no answers to in either the 2AC or the 1AR. So obviously, they don't get new 2AR answers to it. None of their arguments apply, because if they're right that strikes failed, the arguments aren't about surrender for winning any of these. It is purely that the war would cause Trump to lose the election, which means that they can win every single argument they made on the floor, and they would still lose the debate. It also circumcised framing, because warming is a structural impact, which means it causes lots of structural violence in the interim, and it outweighs and it solves all their predictions argument, which means that we definitely outweigh the first arguments. They get new arguments. Look, this is obviously ridiculous. They said that their only justification that we read new cards. We read new cards to answer their 2AC argument. Every impact terms we read new cards on. You obviously wouldn't expect the 2AC to read cards on something that the 2AC didn't answer. That makes it impossible, because it justifies the 2AC reading like one card or blip saying a few analytics, and then the 1AR just shocking a card on a bunch of things that the negative never gets to read card on. So I'll read a bunch of I'll read cards to answer their new cards just in case, but those don't justify the card arguments they made in the 1AR, and they obviously don't justify new 2AR answers. The next argument is that it would draw in Israel. Look, our evidence assumes it. It says the US and Israel would do a bombing campaign on Iran that wouldn't go nuclear, which means it solves their offense, but they have no evidence to substantiate it would go nuclear. We take two sides for it to go nuclear, i.e. the US and Israel would need another nuclear power to be fighting against. They have no evidence to substantiate any of it. You should read their 1AC evidence. It certainly doesn't say it. They dropped all the warrants for Russia. We literally struck one of their sovereign allies, and they didn't get it on in. They're not even backing Iran with weapons anymore, which proves they obviously wouldn't back it with nukes. China cares far more about their economic interests, both with the US and oil, so they wouldn't get drawn in the argument. Reject this on face begs the question of use of land as consequences. If it saves more people, it's obviously a good idea. The argument that the US would get involved, I'm not sure what they get out of this. Even if the US enhances its military presence slightly in the Middle East, there's no reason that escalates and all that drawn arguments apply above. But our evidence is great. It cites the US nuclear warfighting posture and says that we would get rid of their nuclear facilities, and also a surrender argument solves, because if we utterly eviscerated Iran, then they wouldn't be able to retaliate. The next card is from a staff writer, which has no warrant. It says that we wouldn't be able to take them out, but our evidence cites the specific technologies from the US. It says that our massive increase in counterforcing and transparency causes us to know where all their nuclear facilities are. It literally cites the location of every individual one. It says that our new bunker busters, which their evidence doesn't assume would be able to take it out, the no prolif impact will concede it that takes out in the turn. They said that Iran is stalking cooperation a bunch of times in the past, and that they have ideologically opposed to it, so they can't get warrants from it, but the case would solve, the term was solved anyways. We'll also concede there's no impact to prolif anyways, so it doesn't matter. The next argument is that nuclear war wouldn't cause extinction, it would cause extinction. First, it doesn't require nuclear weapons, it would probably be conventional. What solves this? Second, this argument is new, you should obviously reject it. Third, it's about a US-Russia war, which obviously doesn't apply, that'd be far bigger. Fourth, it was counterforce wouldn't cause nuclear winter. This nuclear part 90 warmers are necessary to the public to be sent to any air force cause radiation use a big number of faulty has been from 3 to 4 million to 700. The next argument is that Trump wins now. That's our argument. The Trump wins now because he's coasting out the economy, but a big war would stop it. It would both cause him to be entangled and cause oil price spikes. The next argument is that they wouldn't close the strait. Look, read their Goldenberg evidence. It says that Iran would close the strait and cause massive oil price spikes. They don't get defense, but SPR doesn't check this kill. It's on 19 SPR released off that increased by private oil. Oil infrastructure was the response to the real price to oil. Mark that card at oil. Yeah, no prolif. We conceded that. Yemen pitch. Oh, the argument that they wouldn't close the strait. Look, this card is highlighted to oblivion. It doesn't say a warrant. It doesn't assume that they're already in a war with the US in which they want to do it. They read evidence. It's a new argument. They obviously don't get this. Yemen. The only argument I'm going to for here is utils, trutil. The only warrant they extended for why that's not the case is that predictions are impossible, which is obviously ridiculous and begs the question of whether they could answer our predictions. It's debate, so you should have to engage in them. Utilitarianism is good. They just said that structural violence is bad. We agree with that, but that's not a reason that extinction isn't bad. Extinction massively outweighs on magnitude, causes far more deaths than structural violence, and they dropped that as a qualitative input because based on our irreversibility. It also flips the cognitive bias argument because we have scope neglects our emotional responses on a logarithmic scale, so we don't have 1,000 times emotional response between 1 million deaths and 1 billion deaths. Count. Look, there was no dispo argument in the 2AC. They read a new counterinterpretation in the 1AR, which is a jurisdictional reason you can't vote for them. That's a new argument that they don't get, and so there's no counterinterpretation. They're also dropped reasonability and topicality that applies to your non-resolutional theory arguments are bad. They lower the threshold when you find one thing the other team could have done better. Just by flash analytics, read off their balls, except crowds out substance that makes the hundreds of ways made it takes to create enormous collateral damage to a search holder offense. There was no in-round. We read one advanced counterplans without capable planks and 1K. They dropped the process shift argument and incentivized a shift to process arguments because we're nearly impossible to beat without perms. That shift debates a less substantive response to the turn research argument because it disincentivizes case-specific research. The negative flexibility is the only way to keep the negative in the game. Dispo forces the negative at the app with one reciprocal advocacy. That means the app will crush them. They drop a slew of examples for the app and structurally head infinite prep, fake plan, 2C shift, new apps, and first and last speech. The negative ground is fundamentally reactive, so the 2C will just read add-ons, and the negative will be terminally fucked in every debate. Fairness outweighs because debate is fundamentally when they're decided on the margins. The internal terms are off because they don't apply debate to incentivize research. Apps read perm every round, so they don't solve.
Read 112. Where do you stand?
You do?
It's not.
Oh. Haha.
Okay.
I'm gonna be looking at the dirt a lot on this table.
Alright.
Actually, it's already body.com.
Okay. Is anyone not ready? Okay. Any risk of defense on any piece of their offense is enough for us to be able to win. There is no extension of defense on any of our conditionality claims, which means it should be pretty easy for you to vote affirmative and pull the trigger. Which means all we have to do is win a single piece of offense. The offense that we're extending is twofold. First, they've conceded that it's not reciprocal since the negative gets to take out of whatever positions they want to, whereas the affirmative only has to defend one route throughout, and only have one route to the ballot throughout the entire debate through an advocacy, which is a crucial distinction between that and everything else. Insofar as we're winning that it's not reciprocal, that takes out all of their other arguments about things like neg flexibility, because that's not as important as things like reciprocity, because reciprocity is the only way to ensure that we can have the same types of advantages to being able to get to the ballot, which is the only internal link to being able to have equitable access inside of the debate round. But the second argument that we're going for as a form of offense is that they've conceded that it's a question of advocacy skills, that their interpretation doesn't allow for us to be able to garner advocacy skills because they just end up throwing shit at the wall and trying to see what sticks instead of actually engaging with our positions. Reading multiple conditional advocacies, especially one with a counterclaim that says no strikes, and then reading an impact turn on the case that says we should first strike them, is a way to be able to get out of any form of clash and just allow them to move all of our offense. If we tried to make offense against the stuff on case, then they would have just said that the counterclaim resolves any risk of this, which would get rid of any of our, which would skew our strategy. But instead of allowing them to be able to go for those multiple positions, you should instead advocate for in-depth debate. All of their arguments about substance crowd is the reason why we should be able to win, because the substance crowd only occurs in a world where we read conditional options, because they just throw as much stuff at the wall as possible instead of actually engaging the affirmative. The line by line, they said no dispo was in the 2AC. We don't have to have dispo in the counter interpretation. It's a question of what people are able to do in the world of our interpretation. We say that there's other stuff that is potentially able to solve all of your interpretation, but it doesn't have to be mandated under a counter interpretation. But we'll extend to dispositionality as a reason for why it solves all of their different types of offense. And you should frame the NR, you should frame it through whether or not dispo solves their offense, testing, flexibility, input processing, etc. All products of being able to read different advocacies and not being able to kick them willy-nilly. Use the lens of sufficiency. Even if it's also solve 100% of their offense, it's the best middle ground, then their interp excludes, which is a reason they didn't make any arguments against why DISPO is able to resolve it. It does not incentivize a shift to process counterclaims because you still have to engage with their arguments, especially if we a straight turn, then it benefits to the counterclaim, then you'd be forced to go to it, which is why I didn't straight turn you SMACA and didn't straight turn the defense industrial base dissad, because I knew you would just try and kick out of the counterclaim, or because I knew that you could either kick out of the counterclaim or go for the counterclaim to be able to resolve any sort of different links or add on planks to the counterclaim to be able to go for it. Even if the counterclaim itself wasn't conditional, being able to add on planks is another reason as to why you shouldn't allow this in the world, because they didn't say that they didn't say this explicitly in cross-ex that all of the planks were together unconditional. They just said that the counterclaim was conditional, which means that you can assume that each of the planks is possibly conditional because they can add on amendments inside of the 2 and C to solve stuff that we didn't say. But even still, conditionality itself is a reason why they should be able to lose. Their argument about incentivizing info processing, we've turned our arguments about info processing, take out theirs, because we say info processing occurs worse in a world where people are incentivized to do, in a world where people are able to read low quality arguments that they wouldn't otherwise read unless it's conditional. So process counterclaims that have really bad net benefits that are easily straight turnable, people aren't going to read in a world where it's not conditional, because they don't need to have those shitty net benefits. Our second is they consider that incentive to do research and things like incentive to do research is inevitable and have to be against multiple, because you have to debate against multiple different affirmatives, which means that people can always try and do different research against different types of cases. Their neg flexibility arguments, they dropped multiple responses to them. First is that DISPO solves. You can read multiple offs and have flexibility to choose between them. You still get to kick the counterclaim if we make a perm or a theory argument. If we don't read those arguments, it becomes like a dissad. Second, they've conceded that you still get dissads. NC's theory, T, and ability to choose which of those arguments to go for, which is no reason why conduit is key. Third, to some degree, neg flexibility is good, but what they did in this round is uniquely bad, as I explained above. But even still, fourth, neg flexibility doesn't outweigh the neg flexibility is worse because they've conceded that it's worse that the negative is structurally ahead inserted into the policy because they get the entirety of the block to be able to proliferate a bunch of different cards just like they did in this round. The question was in the 1 and C, most of their arguments were underdeveloped where they could read a 1-card dissad and then proliferate a ton of cards in the block where the 1AR is structurally behind and has to be able to, it makes it impossible for us to be able to catch up. The 2EC the 2EC faces a massive amount of time skew in the context where they can just proliferate a bunch of those bad arguments but rely on conditionality as a backup to be able to kick out of it. Also, the last thing that they try to say fairness outweighs, but if fairness outweighs, then they have no arguments about fairness. They've just made educational arguments and then neg flexibility. But insofar as they've conceded that it's a worse for the neg to be flexible, then we've turned their offense. Fairness does outweigh in the world of the affirmative, though, because they've conceded all of our arguments about reciprocity, which means that we are the only ones with an internal link to fairness. The app is not ahead inside of policy, because even if we get to speak first and last and determine the reactivity of the neg, the structural advantages of being able to have the block and getting to read infinite abusive counterclaims outweighs.
Probably don't want to shake my hand.
Yeah.
Good make that.
Okay.
it's 2. It's doubles and octaves.
Doubles and octaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, Porcelain said there were 3 tomorrow, so
Yeah.
quarters to 9. Fine, yeah, that works. Jay, in LD, how frequent is 3-hour tea?
Happens occasionally.
Occasionally?
I mean, it's not uncommon. People vote for it a lot. It's a. There's this one debater who's here in LD, Jonathan, who's gone for like 5 times.
For Harvard, what's it?
There's another debater here who actually has.
I've never gone for 5
Really?
tea.
He goes for condo a lot, but.
Yeah, when they abuse me.
And I'm judging LD here, and I heard it like both rounds I judged.
Also, I really pop the ball. What team? GDS? Did they really pay off this one? No, Aiden had good one. Who did they have? Never? So was Never.
Yeah, no, I just not gonna everything.
No, it's not. I need to know. Can I keep random fortune? Really? So the 2 bulbs were going on. No, there were 4. 3 bulbs. There were. Why didn't you just stay?
There were, I think, 4 teams who were.
So Georgetown was the lowest seed.
Maybe? That's all good.
That's what I did. Jay, how good is Adrian's partner?
Who's?
Adrian Gushin?
How good or bad?
I said good.
Oh.
Well, either give your honest answer.
I think they're really good. I don't. What do you mean? How good are they?
Like, is Adrian Doubleton?
No.
Okay.
Let me just find that.
This is brutal.
Can I get
What's Alexa?
OES lost to I'm sure HM, so
Those
she was
two.
3 going into run 6.
I vote negative. As a top-level gut check, the 2&R's concession of reasonability from T, coupled with no in-round abuse, is sufficient for me to think I should err neg toward rejecting the argument, not the team, since theory, debates are internally regressive and devolve into crime and not substance. I don't think I grant you any of the disposed solids defense because it isn't in the 2AC. There's no answer to aft structural side bias and infinite pret means that neg flex outweighs aft flex. That's their internal link to fairness, but you've spotted them outweighs, so the advocacy skill stuff doesn't matter. Perms also solve the majority of the throw shit of the wall offense. I don't think reciprocity is an impact. The aft and neg have fundamentally different burdens. I'm also not persuaded by the planks are conditional is a reasonable assumption. I think you only need a better 2AC to ram more good.
Yeah. Fair enough. We don't really read policy stuff all that often.
Good debate.
Thank you.
Excuse me, if you put the round on YouTube, can you put it on private?
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wait,
You're judging.
wait, is it not on public?
If y'all, it's up to y'all. Wiki, right?
Yeah.
Like,